Some iced tea splashed in my face. Oh, seriously? Welcome to Megapath Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today let's talk about the Season 2 finale, episode number 9 of Stranger Things. And now that it is all complete, we will do like a whole season discussion. Let me know if you guys want to do that coming up in the next week or so. That way, give everyone time to see it. Maybe we'll even do like an hour live stream or something, and then we can all discuss it with fan feedback. I'm going to say I think Season 2 is even better than Season 1. With that being said, I don't mean better as in to take anything away from Season 1. I think Season 2 just, it's just, damn, just as good or better, in all honesty. As good or better. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So we kicked this one off with the reunion of not just Elle and Mike, but Elle and everyone else. And there's an emotional moment with Elle and Hopper that I thought was real good. There's also a moment where she's poking at Dustin's teeth. That's actually another good thing. I know, for anyone wondering, in case you forgot, Dustin had a condition where, I think in the show, didn't it say, show-wise, because I know the actor has a condition as well, but for the show, it just takes longer to grow in. I believe that's how it was for the show, not that they are a set of fake teeth. I forget what direction they're going with the show, but long story short, it doesn't matter because they're able to take that real life thing and interject it into the story, and I think it ended up really good. So there's the Morse code that they need to close the gate, and this is a dangerous thing for a number of reasons. First off, can Elle do it? Second off, Will die. What can they do about that? So they decide to take Will to the cabin. Again, utilizing something that is already in the story. And I think this is incredibly awesome for multiple reasons. One, you get multiple use story-wise, so it comes around full circle. And two, you also have something else. As far as budget-wise, it's smart that they got to reuse a cabin. Although I thought it would be funny to see them accidentally trip the alarm system. You know how he put mouse traps and bullets together? I just thought that would have been funny. Maybe it's probably unnecessary comedy at that point, so maybe that's why they left it out of there. Anyway, so you get Mike's mom reading one of those romance novels. For anyone who doesn't know, those are basically like reading porn. From what I hear, I haven't read too many in my life, and I think they're even really popular in the 80s or 90s. I don't even know if they're even that popular now, but they were supposedly super popular back then, and it's a funny little ad in here. However, what's his name comes to the door. Billy comes to the door. He's got a shirt open, good-looking dude, and she's just like swooning over him, right? And I thought for a moment, I'm like, okay, he's a minor. He's in high school. You know, she's definitely older than him. That's the whole thing there. Here's a hot young stud shows up at the door, and she even checks out his ass as he's walking away, or at least the cameraman did. And I was thinking, imagine if they reverse these roles, because it's a funny little scene, right? But imagine if they reverse these roles, and here's an older dude checking out a young girl's ass, and I'm thinking that would come off as a creeper. I personally don't care to start any double standard debates. I think it's funny, because it is. An older chick looks at a younger guy, and it's like, oh, you know, older guy does it, and it's like, you are disgusting and filthy and foul. Moving on. We got the realization that Will has always wanted it cold, because that's what the entity inside him desires. It lives in the cold, so, or at least we don't know all the details, but it needs it, it wants it to be cold. If you turn up the heat, it'll chase it away. That's the idea. So they decide to set up some heaters and then burn this thing out of him. Make it, I believe the way Jonathan put it, make it inhabitable, or somebody said that. And then we have, really quick, I'm going to touch on the Nancy and Steve. And they did seem to brush over this, and I'm really glad for this, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I really don't want the love triangle thing, and this is one of my biggest worries, is that it will take up way too much screen time. And it took up like 30 seconds. Steve's like, listen, Nancy, I like you. I just want you to be happy. He doesn't even say all that. He just says, listen, Nancy, it's okay. Go with Jonathan. I loved it. Kept it short and simple. Let's not bog down the story with the love triangle stuff. And then we have Jane and Hopper. Jane and Hopper are talking on the drive, and there's a nice emotional moment where they both open up, and they kind of they open up in a way where they let each other know what's been going on, but they have such a sweet reconnect, so to speak. And I thought that was definitely much needed for the story and the characters. I thought that was a great addition, as well as funny moments like Steve putting the Demodog into the fridge. I believe he even whacks his head off of the fridge. All right, so the kids get ready to attack. They start planning their attack with Steve, and Billy shows up. They have this moment where Steve and Billy fight, and I think the funniest part is how Steve gets his face bashed in again. And they have this moment where the girl takes the bat and she threatens him, and to be honest, the scene's fine. The scene's, people did what they needed to do. However, that being the end of it, and that being the climax of the Billy character, it did feel kind of flat. I think they kind of hyped him up to be something a little bit bigger than he was, but it ended up feeling a little flat. Now, if I went into this with different expectations, thinking that he would just be a character around town, I think it would have been suitable, but it did kind of feel a little bit flat. Steve waking up in the car and freaking out with the kids was hilarious, especially since he had rainbow-covered Band-Aids. I think it would have been funnier being able to see them, but since they went into the maze tunnels and they had to cover up and stuff like that, it did momentarily take away from the comedic value of having, you know, his face looks all busted up and he's got these rainbow Band-Aids. That was pretty good. So next thing, I am not a fan of the smoke monsters. I've never been a fan of the smoke monsters. I was a massive fan of Lost. I never liked the idea of a smoke entity being on the island. I don't like smoke monsters. I'm a fan of Outcast, the comic book and TV show. Again, I'm not a fan of any smoke entity going out the mouth. And I hang on to that franchise, hoping to see what this is and find out more about it. And I'll be honest right now, if it always maintains a smoke monster, both in that and in Stranger Things, if it's always just a smoke monster, it never does it for me. It never seems to work. So it all depends on what direction they take with that. However, I feel like I would have enjoyed it a 100% if this was something that oozed out of Mike. Maybe oozed out of his mouth and he turned over and threw it up, and this was a part of the thing but not the whole entity. It was just because we know it has a hive mind, so this could be like a major part of it, but not the actual creature or the full creature, and they were able to light it on fire or burn it, so it was an actual physical thing instead of just smoke rising out or whatever it was, like smoke-like, but whatever the being is in the smoke-like state, just not a fan of that. It was okay. It did its job. Again, I would rather just simply throw up goo and then light the goo on fire and burn it up. Next up, we have Will living. I think that's a positive, especially finishing this episode and finishing the season. You don't want a lot of the dark stuff to bog down the story. You have a lot of emotional stuff, a lot of the darker themes. Yeah, we'll just leave it simply put like that. A lot of emotional stuff, sad emotional stuff happening throughout the episode. To end it in a positive way with the looming threat, I think is absolute perfection. The way they ended episode 1, we don't want it to end similar, and it was set up as if it might even end similar. The endings are real similar, especially if you just take out Elle's moment in the end, but this ending did feel bigger on a grand scale. So the score is also great. The music that underlines the story is fantastic. I'm not a fan of the Three Musketeers at the end. I wasn't really a fan of it in the beginning. I get it's calling back to E.T. and the alien eating the candy and shit like that. I like it here. It works. It worked when it was a baby Demogorgon. I like it here. I think it works. It's acceptable, but I'm honest, it's not blowing me away here. I like the creatures being, these scary, meat-eating, whatever, and it kind of takes away from some of that, having this kid just give it a candy bar and they're able to sneak around it, so that I'm on the fence about. But again, it doesn't make me not enjoy it. I kind of just was like, oh, okay. But I enjoy the connection they kind of had there, that little moment, but still. Anyway, we got the supremely badass scene of Elle closing the gate, which was awesome. And I love that they didn't go to direction like they did in episode 1, where something happens to Elle. Maybe she disappears, goes in the Upside Down again. I knew they couldn't do that. You can't just simply repeat the season 1 ending. So the way they did it was great. Visually, though, like, this is not an exciting moment. She's holding out her hand and something's closing. Not exciting. On paper, not exciting at all. You could probably write it with as much flair as you want, but you got to add to it, and that's why it's great having the rewards of everything else going on with the story, with Will and with the kids in the tunnel. Everything, it all connects together. However, the visuals alone with this moment where she's closing the gate, I think they did a wonderful job piecing everything together with her past and her present, having Hopper there, just the emotions of everything going on. It was badass. Especially badass was when it was raining Demogorgons when it was done, or Demodogs. I love that scene. I truly love that scene. So then after the gate is closed and seemingly all is well and good, we see Hopper sitting down with the doctor, Sam. He made it out. I love that. I love what they did with the doctor. I was so stuck on, he's going to be a bad guy. He's got to be a bad guy. You know, maybe not as bad as Brenner, but he's a bad guy nonetheless. And I love what they did with him. I think Paul Reiser did a fabulous job bringing this character to life. As a matter of fact, most, if not all, of the actors throughout the entire series in season 2 did a fabulous job. Even right down to Lucas's sister, his little sister, when she's playing with the Barbies with the He-Man thing. That was funny. That was funny. She even did a good job, and I'm pointing her out because of her age, not because she's incompetent in any sort of way. I don't know the little girl. I don't remember seeing her from anything, but just because she looks really young, I even think she added some comedic value to the show repeatedly. You know, so that was great. So at the end, we get Jane Hopper is going to be Elle's new name. She is going to be Jim Hopper's daughter. Loving that ending there, loving that connection there. The doctor helps to give her an official birth certificate, which the implication here is after they let it die down a little bit, she might even be able to go to school using that name. She might be able to go to school next year in Mike's school. She might be and have, and I think this is some enjoying speculation. We had a season where she was a runaway, this season where she's a fugitive, season 3 where she's a normal person enjoying life. I think that is such a rewarding way to kick off a 3rd season, and then shit starts hitting the fan. But have her as someone who's trying to live a normal life again. I love that idea so much, and them ending it like this was great. There's one thing I want to point out. Will, he has a picture hanging up and it's Super Bob. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but I thought that was a great, nice touch and a nice little homage to Bob and giving his life to help save everybody, because he definitely did that. So he is, you know, a superhero at the end of the day in the story. I think that's great. Dustin's hair, another haha moment. His connection with Steve, the tip Steve gave about, was it Farrah Fawcett's hairspray or some shit? So he does his hair and he goes to the dance, and they have this incredibly cute moment between Nancy and Dustin where Max goes to dance with Lucas. He's sad. He asks a couple chicks. He gets shot down, and I can imagine a ton of people bawling over this scene, and he's sitting by himself. He's crying a little bit and he's sad, and they were able to bring Nancy into the story. Fits the story perfectly, but it doesn't just fit for right now. It connects to season 1. Remember in the first episode where he brought pizza up to Nancy and he's like, hey, you know, sausage and pepperonis. Again, another E.T. callback, wasn't it? And she shuts the door in his face, and then now in season 2 she sees that he's alone and was obviously shot down, and she goes over to dance and everyone's looking over him. Oh man, you know, he got the pretty older girl. That's what's up. Go you, Dustin. So that was a sweet moment. And then we have Hopper and Joyce, another going full circle, but this time not back in season 1. I think they mentioned it in season 1 about smoking and getting in trouble at the school, smoking cigarettes. But then in season 2, I think early on in like the 2nd or 3rd episode, they were talking about, remember they did that? They were sitting at their kitchen table and they said, remember where we used to get caught smoking and sharing cigarettes? I believe it was under the bleachers or by the bleachers, and we would get in trouble. And you know, Joyce says she just wants this to be over. She wants to get past this and move on and get on with her life. Something along the lines of that. And here we have that moment in this very season. They're back at this spot. They brought this up in conversation. They're back at this spot, similar to their childhood, and now everything seems to be going good now. They defeated the entity is out of will. There's no issues that they know of. I keep beating around the bush because we know there's more seasons. We know there's more shit popping off. But for now, it came full circle with that part of the story. I like that. And then we have the final thing I want to bring up. Oh, obviously, 11 shows up. Jane, I'm just going to call her Jane from now on, right? Jane shows up, and she has a little dance with Mike. Great way to reward the viewers at the end. And this is something that Hollywood is a trouble with real ways to write screenplays. In the past, it's always been conflict is king and all these old directions and mandatory structure for screenplay. Structure is great. You need structure. You need it. But somewhere along the lines, they started saying it can't do anything except for this structure, and they just forgot. It's as if everyone made a structured mess, and everyone forgot that there's more to it. The structure should just be like a loose guide, not a mandatory regulation like this is how you do it. Don't go color outside the lines because that's wrong. You need to focus on ruin and reward, I call it, only because it sounds good. But it's essentially conflict. The ruin is the conflict. It's the sad and the happy, the up and the down. Still to this day and back in the olden days, it's always conflict. Conflict is king. Conflict. That's all you hear, and that's why I keep repeating it, because that's how we get these predictive, not even just predictive, but it feels like we're seeing the same old shit over and over again. Well, when you start looking at writing as ruin and reward, now you start seeing why viewers enjoy it as much. We enjoy the ruin. We enjoy a story where we like this Bob character, for example, and he's at a complete ruin. He dies, but it's such a great part of the story. Not just him, but everything. If you look at all the sad parts, all the down moments, with Jane, all her emotional moments, all the sadness she deals with, especially in season 2, that's all the ruin. That's all the conflict. Her conflict with Hopper, the yelling, the arguing, the bickering, the bitching, that's all the ruin. But then you get the reward, and that's what makes it so enjoyable. Without the reward, it's not as enjoyable. Some people look at that as all dark or all this and all that. You need the ruin and the reward. The ruin is all the emotional stuff, and the reward is her patching things up with Hopper in the truck and then shutting the gate, all those moments there. The reward, the ruin is her being separated from Mike, which I think this is a fantastic thing they did throughout the entire season. The ruin is having her out of the story the entire time. A lesser talented screenwriter would have threw her in the story with Mike in episode 3 or 4. They would have forced the stories together. They kept her separated all the way until the end, all the way until episode 8. You know what I mean? Like that takes control and discipline and calculation and a passion, love, and understanding for the story, not just jamming the characters together. So you get the ruin of this character throughout the entire season, and then now we get the reward, and it's such a rewarding way to end this season and give us the taste of that thing's still out there. The Upside Down's still there, the Dimension's still there. We don't know if there's any gates or portals or anything else, but it's still there, so it's always going to be a threat, and there's going to be a new season coming up. So what that entails and what's going on with that, we're not going to get into any speculation. I really think speculation should be difficult at this point in time, because there's going to be a little they can pull from these 2 seasons, definitely, but I think they can go any different number of directions, and that is what's going to make it difficult to predict. So anyway, I'm going to cut this off here because I started going into the whole episode review, but I'm going to stop it now, and we'll discuss more of the overall season probably in a few weeks after people have had a time to watch it. So you leave your thoughts, theories, opinions, predictions, everything, Easter eggs, everything you want to discuss. Put those down in the comment box. Definitely, I'm done talking. It's your turn. Last thing I got to say, it crowned it. Stranger Things, probably on the top of my all-time favorite TV shows. It's up there with Breaking Bad. It's up there with The Walking Dead, obviously. It's up there with Sopranos, The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, and it's difficult for me to say which one's better, Stranger Things or Sons of Anarchy, because there's the real world stuff and then there's fantasy stuff, and I find a terribly difficult time separating those on lists. But I gotta say, Stranger Things is high. It is close to the top. I absolutely love it. As a franchise, man, I love it. I just love it. So, I'm going to get going. Thanks for coming by and checking out the reviews. Please, if you enjoyed them, definitely check them all out. Hit that like button for some support. And I'll see you guys back here next time for some more Stranger Things.